Check out our streaming schedule for this week. We stream every single day on this channel, talking about all things sports history. And now with college basketball season really getting in the swing of things, we are doing a lot of college basketball streams, commentating the action as we get one step closer to March Madness. So join me every night as we call the best of college basketball. And now, on with our feature presentation. Before I start this video, you're probably going to be wondering during the first few minutes why the heck I'm showing footage of the Super Bowl 40, especially considering the subject matter we're talking about. Well, just bear with me on this, trust me, this story is about to get really insane. February 5th, 2005. It's 20 years ago, or 1 year before the game that you're looking at right now, and it's the day before the Super Bowl. And we start this story off with an unfortunate tragedy. Somewhere in Milton, Washington, two men, a 23-year-old named Steve Kyo Tang and a 28-year-old named Tino Patricelli, were fighting with each other outside a Bud's Saloon and Steakhouse. Sometime around 1 in the morning, while Tang and Patricelli were fighting each other, Patricelli punched Tang. We're not sure what entirely caused the fight or how the punch happened, but after Patricelli delivered the punch, Tang pulled out a firearm. Why Tang had a firearm with him, I'm not sure. But after Tang pulled out his firearm following the punch, he shot Patricelli 3 times. The shots were fatal. 28-year-old Tino Patricelli was dead. Tang left the bar with one of his friends, finding a nearby car and just telling the driver to leave immediately. The driver sent the tip into the police the next day and was not arrested or charged with anything, seeing as she had no idea that she was acting as an accomplice in all of this. However, on February 7th, one day after Super Bowl 39, the police arrested the man who committed the first homicide in Milton, a town with under 9,000 residents, since 13 years prior in 1992, and just the second homicide in Milton since the 1960s. The police charged Tang with second-degree murder and illegally being in possession of a firearm, and his bail was set at $500,000. The charges were then changed to first-degree manslaughter. This all happened one day right around the time of Super Bowl 39. The shooting happened the day before, and the arrest was made the day after. And in a bizarre coincidence, the setting scene was going to take place right around the time when the game we've been watching this whole time, Super Bowl 40, was being played, exactly 1 year later. Now you might be wondering, why the heck are you bringing football and the Super Bowl into this? The Super Bowl, while being a big game, is a game. This is a man's life that we're talking about. This is a man who could be sent to prison for the rest of his life. And this is another man who lost his life far too young, before the age of 30. Football seems rather insignificant in that context, don't you think? Well, if you think that, I'm going to tell you about the person who did not seem to think that whatsoever. Because today's story involves what might just be, considering the circumstances, the dumbest judge in the history of the United States court system. There are a lot of dumb judges, but this one might take the cake, and you're not going to believe what she decided to do during this. Because this is the story behind the bizarre controversy at Super Bowl 40, and the dumbest judge of all time. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, I really appreciate it if you hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. We post every single day about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL and the Super Bowl. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is the place for you. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. And now, before I talk about the actual judge and what she did that left everyone speechless, we need some context to understand what the football scene was like at the time. It's February 2006, and we are getting closer and closer to the biggest game of the season, the Super Bowl. And this Super Bowl was historic, because for the first time ever, this team right here, the Seattle Seahawks, was going to be playing in it. The Seahawks got to this point after finishing the season with a 13-3 record, which was the best in franchise history. And after defeating the Carolina Panthers 34-13 in the NFC Championship, in a game that was never even remotely competitive, and a game that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Everything that could go right for the Seahawks in 2005 did. Excluding the final game of the regular season, where the Seahawks played their backups for the majority of it, having nothing to play for, thanks to clinching the #1 seed in home field advantage throughout the playoffs. The Seahawks enter the Super Bowl riding a 13-game winning streak with their starters. They had a suffocating defense that finished inside the top 10 of the NFL in most categories, and had a 2-game stretch at one point where they outscored their opponents 83-3. And offensively, good luck stopping these Seahawks. They finished the year with 452 points scored, averaging 28.3 points per game, which was the most in football. And they did it not just a solid play by Pro Bowl quarterback Matt Hasselbeck, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, but great play by running back Sean Alexander. Alexander finished the season leading the NFL with 1,880 rushing yards and 27 rushing touchdowns, which was an NFL record at the time, and today is the second most rushing touchdowns by any player in a single season in NFL history, only behind LaDainian Tomlinson's historic 2006 season 1 year later. For his efforts, Alexander was named an AP First Team All-Pro, the AP Offensive Player of the Year, and the MVP. And for my money, Alexander absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But that's another story for another time. The point is that the Seattle Seahawks were really freaking good. They became a franchise in 1976, and for the first 29 seasons of their existence, they only made it to the conference championship one time, where they lost to the Los Angeles Raiders. But in their 30th season, they made it back, and were going to be playing in their first ever Super Bowl, looking to give the Pacific Northwest a Vince Lombardi trophy. This team right here, the Seattle Seahawks, was a heck of a ball club, and everyone was feeling Seahawk fever. And when I mean everyone, I truly mean everyone, because the final workday before the Super Bowl on February 5th was Friday, February 3rd. And this date also happened to be the date where Steve Kyo-Tang was set to be sentenced for first-degree manslaughter on Tino Petrocelli. The emotions were high. Even though most of Washington was happy right now because of the impending Super Bowl, the courtroom was anything but that. The family of Tino Petrocelli was face-to-face with the man who killed their son. Over 100 people were in the courtroom, with many of them being family and friends of Petrocelli, weeping and intensely looking on as there was going to be some finality and conclusion to this year-long nightmare. A 24-year-old now was set to spend a long time behind bars for his actions. Football was the furthest thing from anyone's mind right now as the sentencing was set to happen. Or so you'd think, because for one person in the courtroom, football was the first thing on her mind. The sentencing could wait. Football was more important, because that person happened to be the judge. Because in something that seems entirely made up, Judge Beverly Grant entered the courtroom, and with that, everyone rose. So far, pretty normal. The judge walks in, and then you rise. You would think the next words out of Grant's mouth would be, "Thank you, please be seated," or something along those lines. Nope, because here's what Grant said next, word for word. "Good afternoon, everyone. Before you sit down, and I know this is rather unusual, but we have a great football team today, and I just wanted you to give one holler for the Seahawks. So let's just say, go Seahawks. I'm going to say on 1, 2, 3, go Seahawks." Seriously. Imagine a judge in Philadelphia this week trying to lead the crowd in an EAGLES Eagles chant right before a sentencing for a murder. Or a judge in New York, whenever the heck they make a Super Bowl in the next millennia, trying to lead the crowd in a JETS 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 chant right before something like that. Naturally, everyone in the courtroom was stunned, and no one said anything. Maybe there was some murmuring of the chant, but it wasn't emphatic by any means, not to the judge's liking. So Judge Grant said to the courtroom of people who were in shock and were in disbelief, "Come on, you can do better than that. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, go Seahawks." Seriously, it didn't work the first time, so she tried it again. Because if at first you don't succeed, try again, right? And amazingly enough, Grant continued, saying, "I know that's a little abnormal, but I think it's appropriate. Now have a seat, and just in case you were wondering, I was supposed to have some sort of dress like a Seahawk, and I didn't do it. So this is my way of getting close to that mandate. So let's just recap where we are right now in the sentencing for first-degree manslaughter. The judge orders everyone to rise and yell, "Go Seahawks," then orders them to yell it a second time when the first time wasn't good enough for her liking, and then talks about how she was supposed to dress up like a Seahawk and like the mascot. Of all the ways for a court proceeding to start, this might be the craziest one. I don't remember them teaching me this in law school. Amazingly enough, after all of this, Judge Beverly Grant issued a statement about why she did this, saying, "The tension was very high, and I thought it would be a way of people just thinking of something else and releasing it. It was a diversion tactic to bring unison in the group." I'm sorry, what? The tension was high? No crap, the tension was high. I have a feeling the tension will be high when you've got one man about to go to prison for a long time and 100 people there staring face to face with the killer of their friend or family member on the 1-year anniversary of his death. It's not like you're trying to do an icebreaker between a group of strangers. You're trying to do an icebreaker during a freaking manslaughter sentencing. This genuinely feels like a Michael Scott idea. I don't even know what to say. And a diversion tactic to bring unison? Judge, there ain't gonna be any unison between these two groups. You'd have a better chance of getting peace in the Middle East than getting peace between a killer and the people of the person that was killed. There are certain groups of people that will never reconcile with each other, and that's one of them. I genuinely don't think Judge Grant has ever been in a courtroom before. What does she do when the Seahawks are not in the Super Bowl? If it's tense in there, does she have everyone in the room play 2 truths and a lie before the proceedings? Play a game of 7-Up? Saying that you did this because there was tension in the courtroom is like saying you raised the temperature to room temperature in the walk-in freezer because it was too cold. That's the point. And especially seeing as Tang got sentenced to 13.5 years in prison for first-degree manslaughter, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to you when I say that this was not received well whatsoever. Said Suni Y. Ko, the deputy prosecutor, one family is seeing a son go off to prison, and one family is here to find justice for their loved one who was murdered. It's important to them. Do you think they want to root for the Seahawks? Patricelli's stepmother said, "This was kind of an important day for us. Cheering for the Seahawks with the defendant in the room, I don't think was appropriate." Understatement of the century right there. Understatement of the freaking century. The day after the game, Grant issued an apology for her statements, saying that it wasn't her intention to bring pain to the victim's family and downplay the situation. However, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to you that she was admonished for this and was found to be in violation of multiple canons of the Code of Judicial Conduct. She was found to be in violation of Canon 1, which states that judges shall uphold the integrity of the judiciary, in violation of Canon 2A, which states judges shall respect and comply with the law and should act at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary, in violation of Canon 3A2, which states judges should maintain order and decorum in the proceedings before them, and in violation of Canon 3A3, which states judges should be patient, dignified, and courteous to litigants, lawyers, and others with whom judges deal in their official capacity. In layman's terms, she screwed up. She did just about everything wrong. Outside of letting Tang off the hook because it was a Seahawks fan, or taking a bribe from someone who was a Steelers fan, Judge Beverly Grant did, quite literally, everything wrong. Somehow, she was only admonished, which means that she got to keep her job and not be fined or suspended, so long as she didn't do that again. And she had to read the Code of Judicial Conduct again in its entirety, but that was it. A slap on the wrist. Kind of incredible when you think about it. Having said that, the bad news for Judge Beverly Grant, besides the fact that she was an absolute idiot during all this, is the fact that that weekend, when the Seahawks played the Steelers in the Super Bowl, the Seahawks ended up losing the game, losing 21-10 in a game that was highly, highly controversial, featuring some, shall we say, very, very questionable calls, and some awful coaching on Mike Holmgren's part that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. The referees for that game were not stellar. Even the head referee, Bill Levy himself, said that he screwed up that game. But as bad as he screwed up that game, at least he didn't screw it up as badly as Beverly Grant did with this proceeding. Seriously, what the heck was she thinking? So there's a word to the wise to any judges or any of my lawyer or law school friends who might be watching this one. First off, I am so glad I am not doing what you're doing. Like, thank God I did not go down that path and was able to make this YouTube thing work out. Like, thank God on that. But second off, do not, under any circumstances, start any court proceeding, especially one that involves a dead man, by stating your NFL team allegiance and affiliation. If the Steelers make the Super Bowl, do not enter the courtroom waving a terrible towel. If the Titans make the Super Bowl, first off, yuck, but second off, do not start a proceeding by saying tighten up. You get the idea. Save that for literally any other time. Because in the courtroom, instead of yelling go Steelers or go Seahawks, the only thing you should be yelling is go Pierce County prosecutors and the rule of law. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.